Right, we are recording. Joining me next to his upside down dog, sound asleep on the sofa. Ben, how you doing?
I'm good, Stu. How are you, mate?
I'm all right. I'm all right.
This dog.
I don't
think they can see her on the podcast. But what the fuck?
I love it. It's a hard life, man. It's a hard life being a dog.
It would seem so.
Well, Ben, I'm going to kick things off. I'm going to ask you to tell me the song that you regard as having the greatest ever intro. Big question.
Yeah, I had to really think on these a bit here. So, in my opinion, the song with the greatest intro that I could think of. I mean, these things also, I got to tell you, Stu, these things change by the hour.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
I mean, when you're a music fan, when you're a music freak, I mean, it's like, this is a conversation. So it's like we're out at the pub or something like that. And I would tell you something different tomorrow night. But tonight at the pub, you and I'm going to say that Living Thing by Electric Light Orchestra has the best intro.
It's a glorious choice, mate.
Challenge me. What do you got?
I ain't got no. I don't think. I mean, the thing is, I'm the same as you. I'll be going like, oh, it could be this, it could be this, and then, like you say, like 10 minutes later, something will come on the radio, and I go, man, that's the best fucking intro ever. Like, and it's just how it is, isn't it? And like, and it's really weird. Like every musician always says that this is the hardest question. This one.
Oh, really? I mean, I was going to say Band of Horses, Is There a Ghost? But I had to go with...
That's a good one, mate.
I'm kidding. But no, ELO, I mean, I was lucky to catch their music, I guess in my 20s or something, like mid-20s. I was working the door at a bar, and there was a bartender that would play ELO records. And I just fell in love, man. And I didn't... You know, I thought sometimes a bit disco, sometimes a bit, just a bit too much or something. But God, as I've ripened in my old age, I only got further and further into their catalog and became a bigger fan. But that intro to Living Thing, that's my choice for sure.
Well, in regards to intros and ELO being, I guess classic examples of, traditional songwriting style and, big grand intros and things like that. When you approach songwriting, Ben, are you ever affected or influenced by the way that people are now starting to how people get their music now by things like Spotify and playlists, where I imagine, maybe more in mainstream pop music, there's producers saying we need to trim a bit more fat off of that. Then that needs to be like, straight in with the hook, start with a chorus. Or does any of that kind of process of, wanting to get on certain playlists or get on the radio and things like that, does that ever find its way into your creative process?
Stu, if that were something that I possessed, I probably wouldn't get turned away at the grocery store for not having enough money. So no, I've never known what I'm doing. I stumbled into this line of work, and I fumble constantly with every bit of the process. I never know what I'm doing except for I love music, and I can only do what I do naturally.
Beautiful answer. For track 2, I want you to tell me the first song you remember hearing that had an emotional impact on you, please. Yes, sir.
The first song I could think of, last night or tonight as we're at the pub. I was lucky to grow up with parents that listened to music all the time, like always had records on. Our doors were kept open as kids while we were going to sleep. So I just heard so much music, man. And I remember hearing Stevie Wonder's I Ain't Gonna Stand For It. I mean, it's just ain't gonna, it's I Ain't Gonna Stand For It. And I would later, kind of realize that, oh, Stevie Wonder's doing like a country and Western kind of thing here. But at the time, as a kid, I didn't know that kind of style of Stevie from a different style of Stevie Wonder. So it just sounded like, familiar. But it's that song, if you listen to it, there are these changes in it, like these grand lifts of chords and things like that, of course, whatever, but just emotion and feeling that happened in there that I remember just being elated and feeling lucky that I have the right parents.
What sort of music was aside from Stevie, what sort of records were being played at home?
A ton of Steely Dan, Ricky Lee Jones, Otis Redding, James Brown, anything from the state of Georgia, honestly. Allman Brothers Band, that kind of like classic, I guess it's like, classified as classic rock now. But damn if I didn't hear every Steely Dan record front to back. I mean, like ad nauseum.
And I mean, I'm looking now over your shoulder, and the room you're in's got guitars everywhere. Aside from records being on at home, how much of a musical sort of household was it? Was there instruments laying around? Were people playing at home?
There was one guitar that my dad had, and it was this awesome guitar that the factory had burnt down when his daddy had bought it for him. On the way of it being shipped to his house, the factory had burned down, and the owner called my granddad and was like, "Can we get that guitar back?" They realized like how rare these guitars are going to be. There was one guitar around. My daddy didn't really play it much. He showed me like a Jimmy Reed blues chord, or blues riff or something like that, and said he used to be in a band and shit, but I never saw him play guitar good once. I've never seen that dude play guitar good once. So no, it's not like my house where there's just shit everywhere.
Yeah. And in regards to the Stevie track, like if you had to pinpoint that emotion that it gave you, what would that have been?
It's the lift. There's a lift. The song, like I was kind of saying, like it shifts into these, I don't know if it's called a modulation, with music people or whatever. It might be a modulation, but the chords shift, and there's a lift in spirit, a lift in spirit.
Lovely. Let's stay in the formative years for track 3, Ben, and I'm going to ask you the song that reminds you of your time at school, please.
This one was easy for me. For me, the song that reminds me of the school days, and there weren't very many of them, I got to tell you, I dropped. I was like, I'm good. I dipped in like I think I had like 2 9th grades, and I dipped in the middle of the second one. I guess it's years over there, my 9th year. I would go to school with 2 buddies, man. And my dude had like, my buddy Bo, he had this like hoopty old like it was like a big ass Cadillac, dude, with like with a drop top. And man, we were so lucky to pull up to school in that thing. We looked so rad. And we were like smoking weed, and we were already like bad. But we would listen to Dinosaur Jr.'s record. It's from the album Without a Sound, and the song is called Feel the Pain. It starts off the album with, it's the first track, but it has this like a wine cork popping. And I swear, dude, even like my best friend Creighton, who plays drums in the Horses, we met because we were at a party here in Charleston, South Carolina. We met at this party. We didn't know each other, but that damn song came on, and we heard that cork popping, and we were both like, yes, at the same time. And I was like, brother, we became, I think we were roommates within days.
So was that around the time, like I guess, like Dinosaur Jr. and being from, you talk Georgia, like how much impacted like the kind of at that time I guess REM were arguably one of the biggest bands in the world at that point. Was that filtering through as well?
Oh my goodness gracious, was it ever? My brother's 4 years older than me, and he got me into like indie rock stuff. He got me into like Dinosaur Jr., Pavement, The Cure, Dead Kennedys. Like he got me into punk stuff, indie stuff. But he was sneaking out of the house, going to see REM shows when they were still like an underground band. Now by this point, REM is a massive fucking arena band, a stadium band. And yeah, that influence was huge, because in the South, in this corner of the country, you don't get a lot of those huge touring, or you don't get a lot of touring bands come through, for one, because we don't have a lot of major highways coming through unless you're in Atlanta. For two, you don't have a lot of local bands that are going to break out and have huge success. The fact that REM did out of Athens, Georgia, I mean, it's still, I think those waves still have effect for all of us in the wake.
When you was at school, I know you said it weren't for you. Did you have any idea what you wanted to do? Was music that presented itself as an option?
In hindsight, now I can see the traces. But I was a mixtape kid. I was always making mixtapes. And I thought that was my passion. So once I left school and, you know, became an adult and all that, I started a record label, because that just seemed like the natural kind of trajectory. And I'm still lamenting it at times that I didn't become more successful as a label guy.
Okay. So to then sort of go from sort of having a label and kind of being, you know, I mean, don't get me wrong, it sounds like you're a pretty cool guy rocking up in that car at school. That's a solid look, that is. But would you say, like, I mean, you know, obviously to see what you do now, would you say you was a confident young lad?
Never have been. I mean, I excelled sometimes at sports and shit like that. Always played sports. I was good at that. But I always got in trouble. So I could never like be on the varsity squad. And I had like purple hair and shit. I started to drift off from that. But I've never been very confident. Honestly, like I still don't find myself to be a very confident person. I don't like going places and shit and talking to people. I love people so much. I'm just not very good at it.
What about, all right, aside from confidence, what about drive? You've chosen a really difficult industry and you've carved out an incredible career for yourself. Like, would you say you're a driven person?
Well, a lot of that stems from having no education really to speak of, or a lot of confidence to lean on. I don't want to go back to work at the cafe.
Yeah.
I don't want to flip eggs anymore for a living. I'm sick of it. Yeah. So then move on to having 4 daughters. It's like, I better have some sort of drive. Someone's got to pay for these damn girls. So if anything, I'm fueled by fear.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think, like, I think that's a very working class thing, that, and I think that's a very, if you've had a humble upbringing and you theoretically work for yourself, I think it's that fear of having to go back to do the things that working class people have to do, you know. And I do think that fear is always ever present, that at any given moment this could just stop. And like, absolutely, do you know what I'm saying?
I absolutely agree. And it's not that working class jobs are terrible. I mean, I've cleaned toilets and nightclubs and shit. Like, some of them can be fucking harrowing, obviously. But with them having children, there's no way that I could support them on that kind of lifestyle. So there is, if the drive I have is for my children and to provide for them, for sure.
Okay. Last one in the formative years. I'm going to ask you, please, Ben, to tell me the first song you remember buying from a record store.
Yeah, I remember this, Stu. Actually, like, there's a shopping mall that we lived near when I was growing up, and in the shopping malls, they would have record stores in them. I'm not sure if I doubt they still do, actually. I don't even know if there's shopping malls anymore in America, but yeah, and that great boom of excess that was early 90s America, I got Belle Biv DeVoe's single entitled Poison.
It's a big tune.
Yeah, it is. It certainly is.
I live just outside of London, and in London at the moment, so many of the clubs are playing that kind of early 90s retrospective, like R&B, or that Teddy Riley stuff, and it's huge at the moment. And Poison's a straight up killer tune.
It really is. And I mean, never trust a big butt and a smile. That lyric is so hilarious, for one, but it's actually kind of been proven true as I've gone along. You got to be careful out there, y'all.
Just to sort of, I'll get back to record stores in a minute, but I'm always fascinated to speak to musicians that have done the kind of stuff that you've done throughout your career. And touching on confidence and drive, I always like to talk about imposter syndrome.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Is that something? Cause I'm asking this because I saw a video ages and ages ago, and I shared it to my buddies because obviously we see that you toured extensively with Pearl Jam, and it's the video of you going and singing Hunger Strike. And I'm not suggesting that was an imposter syndrome moment at all. I'm not suggesting that, but I've never seen joy on anybody's face like the joy that is on your face at that point, and it's so infectious, Ben. Like it just you just think that looks like somebody that, tell me if I'm wrong, like somebody that listened to that song as a young man, and now he's up there doing it. Like, I mean, tell me, like, how was that moment for you? And also, just have you got a relationship with imposter syndrome? Do you have it? Do you get it?
Man, this is a great question, Stu. God, if Belle Biv DeVoe wasn't the first record I bought, it might have been that one, the Temple of the Dog record. I remember that song. I mean, I get chills right now thinking about it, dude. The first job I had was babysitting these two little boys. I was like 13 or something like that. I remember that video was on MTV, and watching it and being like, whoa, this is gonna be fucking huge. God, to do that, it took so much work, homie. Like I was in the women's restroom of Madison Square Garden. Yeah, we had like our own little wing of a backstage area or whatever, but there's like a men's and a women's. And because we didn't have any ladies in the touring party, I was just in the women's restroom with my, iPod or whatever the hell it was back then, listening to that song and trying to fathom how the hell I was going to pull that off. Because they asked me that day, I just got into the venue, before our sound check or whatever, the headlining band sound checks first. And once they're done, if you're lucky, you get a damn sound check. As we're walking into the damn Madison Square Garden, the tour manager's like, hey, do you know that song Hunger Strike? I'm like, yeah, of course I know that song. He's like, do you want to sing it with the band? I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm still kind of like that about it, dude. I was shitting bullets, honestly. Just trying to figure out how I was going to figure it out, and not stare down at the lyrics and mess it up or mess up their damn moment. It's so terrifying. Now, as far as imposter syndrome, I mean, it's hard to tell if I suffer from just that, because I honestly can't tell if I just can't tell what I'm doing. I've never known what I'm doing in this business. So I can't tell if I'm just lucky and grateful, and that leads to a bit of self-deprecation, or if imposter syndrome is a real thing. Either way, I have no idea what I'm doing.
Okay.
The soundbite for you there. A pull quote or some shit, yeah.
Well, let's just touch on record stores one more time. Like as you said, you said your brother started introducing you to like Dead Kennedys and The Cure and stuff like that. Did that then generate interest in the local record store? Did that become an important place for you growing up?
It absolutely did. And you know what? It wasn't so much my brother getting me into the indie stuff and the punk stuff. It was my dad. My dad always wanted to go to the record store when new stuff came out. So even as like a young kid, we were always going to the record store. I mean, more than the grocery store with his ass. So I had an innate kind of, you know, like a master class in going to record stores since I was a nubber, you know, since I was a little, you know, fart dodger. So that was ingrained from a young age. And then as my brother did get me into stuff, well, then it's like I'm going to a different record store than my dad goes to, because, you know, this record store's got, you know, the Pavement stuff, or you know the SST stuff, the Sub Pop stuff, you know, the Rough Trade stuff, all that shit, man. Like I mean, I would buy compilation albums based on record labels and shit, or I'd buy artists because they're on that label.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, and nowadays, if you're on tour and you're in a new town, new city, and you know you go out for a walk, will you still go and kind of dig out a local record store?
That's a tough one, Stu, because I want to buy records, and I don't want my records to get messed up. I'm a bit of a nerd that way, or maybe I'm a bit like tight ass or something like that. But I don't like my records getting warped. Yeah. I've seen it happen too many times where I'm like, I can't let this record go, but I'm not also going to go find a damn, you know, shipping company to send it home right now.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be enough of a twat to ask the tour manager to help me, you know, find a shipping place. So I have to look away at times, actually.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Track 5, Ben, the song that soundtrack your time clubbing.
Yes. And I could tell that I was going to be talking with a gentleman from the UK when I got this question. I'm like, clubbing?
Well, do you know what, Ben? It's a weird one, because like I guess in the UK that generally has kind of connections to kind of raving in chrome clad night spots, but it can be your local rock night, it can be in your indie pub, it can be anything, like just them kind of formative years in, you know, in your teens when you find your tribe and, you know, and it's soundtracked. That kind of era is where I'm going, man.
I certainly shifted that way, because I've always been a bit introverted, to where I wasn't like, you know, I was more working at clubs than I was going to them for, you know, pleasure. But it did remind me of this great track by this band called, or an artist, I believe, called Land of the Loops. And that song is called Multifamily Garage Sale. It reminded me of those times, living in Seattle, especially, where working clubs, being at clubs where like dance nights are happening, whether it be bartending or, you know, being a bus boy or some shit, dish pit, all of it. Or door guy. Good God, I think I worked every damn job besides manager. But so I couldn't help but be reminded of that feeling. And when that record came out, Land of the Loops, it was a bit of an anomaly for Up Records. And again, you know, I'm like at that time I'm also like just so like heavily like loyal to certain labels, and Up Records to me was, I mean, it is still in such high regards as one of the coolest labels out of the Northwest of America. You know, they put out the Built to Spill stuff. They put out the first Modest Mouse stuff. So many great bands. But this Land of the Loops thing was, it was an anomaly because it was electronic. And during that time, a lot of electronic based music didn't sound like that. And I don't think it still does. I think that damn song, if anybody wants to put that on, I think they'd be quite surprised at how cool it is.
I'd never heard it before, Ben. And when I got your list, I went and listened, and it's incredible. And
isn't it?
Yeah, it's kind of dancey, but it's not. And it's kind of lo-fi, but it's not. It's like, It's really good, man.
Yeah. Thanks for listening to it. That's so cool, man. I'm glad you got it.
There's an Australian band that I think they ceased years and years ago that were called Girlin. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. And they kind of, you could some of their stuff was Gerling, and I stumbled across them with this crazy tune called "Death to the Apple Girls," which is kind of a bit Dinosaur Jr, a bit Pavement, and then the next track was called "Enter Time Capsule." And it was completely different, but it's got that feel to it. It's got like a lo-fi band messing around with electronics and messing around with, I guess, dance rhythms and stuff like that. And yeah, that's when I heard that, I thought, oh man, that reminds me of that. And again, that was probably 20 years old, that track now. But I would definitely say, yeah, if you get 5 minutes, give it a listen, Ben. I reckon you'll like it.
I certainly will. I've written it down, and that's why things like these conversations can be so not just helpful, but important. Yeah. Like, growing up a mixtape kid and, always seeing myself in that kind of like role, word of mouth has always been, to me, the best way to learn about new music and new feelings through music. So I appreciate you telling me about it.
Oh, mate, absolutely. I'm forever the mixtape guy as well, man. Like, absolutely.
Yeah. I can tell, bud. I can tell.
Right, I'm taking you home for track 6. Give me a favorite song from Home, please.
Yeah, and I couldn't tell if there was like a typo in the email.
It is county, Ben. Like,
it is county?
Yeah. But then I guess when we go stateside, it kind of changes a little bit over there. But yeah,
I thought it was a typo and was meant to say country.
Well, I've done 350 episodes of this podcast, Ben, and you will be probably the 330th that presumed it was a typo and thought it was country. So you're in good company, mate.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, I'd originally chosen Daniel Johnston's "Life in Vain," and I think the song is just so beautiful. So I'm glad to at least get that out into the ether here, because that song still shocks me to the core every time I hear it. It steams me up. But now, if I have to shift and pivot to county, man, there aren't a lot. So the only band from Columbia, South Carolina, where I'm from, is Hootie and the Blowfish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's the only band. Every kid in my high school had like a damn Hootie shirt on. And I mean, they all looked like lemmings in a way, it's like everyone's buying into the same thing, and no knock on Hootie and the Blowfish. They've had an incredible career and continue to. But I was one of those punk rock kids that's kind of like, I'm good on that, That was around when like Dave Matthews was coming out and Blues Traveler,
Counting Crows.
Exactly, that stuff was. But alternative radio was at least getting a foothold in America. But if I gotta pick a Hootie track, I'll choose "Hold My Hand." That was like their first big hit over here. So if I'm sticking to the criteria, I'm choosing Hootie and the Blowfish's "Hold My Hand."
Okay, all right, that's good. That's
much
good.
to my own chagrin.
That's all right. You've already started the conversation with Daniel Johnston, and what a beautiful human being, and his outpouring of work was just absolutely majestic. Right, last track, Ben. This is when you get to be the mixtape guy and tastemaker and influencer. A song that many may not know that you would like them to hear.
Well, once I kind of reckon that I'd be speaking with a UK journalist. I was like, well, I couldn't help. My mind just went there, thinking that maybe I don't know much about your listenership, but I would reckon there's a lot of heads out there from the UK. And if they don't know this track that Damon Albarn sings on, of Tony Allen, that's the album. It's Tony Allen's album. And the track is called "Go Back." And Damon sings the lead vocal. And he's just absolutely brilliant. Tony Allen is a drummer, like kind of like, I think it's a lot of like African pop and stuff like that.
He was Fela Kuti's drummer, wasn't he?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And the fact that like he and Damon somehow hooked up, and I don't know either of them, but once I heard this track, I can't remember who gave it to me, but I was just like, oh, this is my favorite track that Damon's ever sang on right now. And the fact that Tony Allen's just such an adept, incredible percussion master, And the musicians that are playing with them, I mean, it's such a groovy track.
Yeah, it's cracking. If you like that, Ben, I'm going to give you another one.
I'm with you.
Damon put a record out under the guys Marley Music, Mali.
Oh, yeah.
Marley Music. Yeah, and there's a track on there called Sunset Coming Down. Oh man, that's a beautiful record. That is.
I'm going to listen to that as soon as we get off the phone.
Oh, it's good, man. It's good. Damon's from my hometown, so he's they're from my county actually. So yeah, we're big champions of the work of Damon and Blur and such over here.
You all have a very distinct twang in your delivery. I find it very endearing.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
Well, look, I'm aware that time is tight today, as you've got plenty to be doing, talking to other people. Before we go, I should also say that what we do, Ben, is we put together a little Spotify playlist to accompany the podcast with all of your tracks, so people can go and explore all the songs that we spoke about, and can go and get stuck into not just your choices, but other records that we've had a little natter about today.
Wow, I just almost chose Neil Young last night too. We'd be fucked. Sorry. Continue. I'm listening. I'm sorry.
That's good, man. So we're kind of 2022's gathering a bit of pace, and hopefully we're seeing the world's going to be a far more connected and happier place this year. Ben, what are you looking forward to personally from the rest of this year, and what's going to be happening professionally?
I'm looking forward to quite a bit. I just recently got my kids back in my house, staying overnight with me. That is a huge weight off my shoulders, just to be with my children. I'm looking forward to hopefully people being responsible enough to not get one another sick, so we can all get back to fucking touring and to feeling those good big feelings again together. I'm looking forward to getting back to Europe and the UK. Hopefully towards the end of the year, now that we've had to reschedule. I've only thought so much about your question about what I'm looking forward to. Was there another part of the question?
What's happening professionally?
Who cares? No, I'm kidding. Thank you for asking. I know you have to. So the boring part. No, we have a new record, and I actually am genuinely thrilled about the record, and kind of feeling like there's like a chickens coming home to roost quality to this album that I'm really excited to share with people and get it off my damn back.
Well, we'll put some tasters on the playlist as well, so people can go and get a taste of it. Ben, honestly, man, I'm a big fan of your work, and it's been an absolute joy to get to just come and chat and talk records with you, man. It's been a real privilege. Thank you, man.
Well, I'm now a big fan of your work, by the way. So we are now we're peers and we're friends. So
lovely.
Thank you very much for the good chat, and thanks for reminding me about some of these songs that I haven't lost by the wayside, but I've forgotten some of the timeline as I've gone. So thanks for the good reminder and bringing up these other good tracks that I'll be listening to now.
Oh, mate, it's been a pleasure. When you're in the UK next, Ben, I'm going to come and find you at a show and buy you a beer, brother.
You better give me a big hug.
I'll do that, mate. You have a lovely day, Ben. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you, brother.
Say goodbye. She's saying goodbye as well.